StarCast returns to the Chicago area this Labor Day weekend. Tickets for StarCast 6 are now on sale at StarCast.com. Join us at the Hyatt Regency Schaumburg starting Friday night, September 1st, for unique fan experiences with wrestling legends from yesterday and superstars from today. Follow StarCast events on Twitter for the latest updates about all things StarCast. Can't be in Chicago? Premiere Streaming Network has you covered. Visit StarCastOnPremiere.com and get daily access or save with the weekend bundle. Get all past StarCast, the upcoming Wrestling Showcase event, as well as thousands of hours of content from your favorite promotions and stars, and 2 months of Premiere Plus for free. Order now at StarCastOnPremiere.com. StarCast 6 is brought to you in part by ProWrestlingCrate.com. Monthly mystery crates for die-hard wrestling fans. Plans start at $9.95 and are the perfect gift for any wrestling fan. Visit ProWrestlingCrate.com today.
Recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler to ever lace them up, your friend and mine, Double J, JArrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad, I'm doing well, my friend, but I don't know if I'm doing as good as you are, my fellow Hall of Famer. You're down at the beach. I can see you've got kicked back. Down at the beautiful Gulf of Mexico. I'm looking at dirty old Hickory. No, I love old Hickory Lake. Conrad, I'm doing very, very well. August has been one incredible month. One thing after another. We're going to be spending some time together. Going to be podcast movement. Got a little show over in across the pond coming up. Just coming off the heels of another championship. And
another one. Just keep racking them up.
We're going to close the month out in Connie style in Chicago for StarCast. So life is good, Conrad. Busy.
Well, life is good. I can't wait to ask you about that belt. You know, I'm a bit of a belt collector, and I kind of assumed that behind you we would see that Texas Chainsaw Massacre belt. Where is that, in Cody's room right now, or where is that?
Let's when we get to that part of the show, because the topic today is none other than Jeffrey Nero Hardy. And our relationship goes, gosh, to the mid-90s. I can't wait to kind of dive into that. But it occurred to me this past week at Dynamite. So the show is 7 to 9 Central, as you know, as our audience knows. And about, I don't know, I'd say, Conrad, about 9:45, 10 o'clock, it occurred to me that when I put my head on the pillow on Tuesday night, you would have asked me right before I went to sleep, Karen would have whispered, "Who do you think the biggest belt nerd is?" I'd have said, "Honey, don't bother with those silly questions. It's Conrad Thompson, my partner."
It's actually Jeff Jones.
Well, guess what? Jeff can attest to this. We've got a new leader in the clubhouse. My man, Coat Dog, was strutting all over the backstage of Bridgestone Arena, patting that bad boy belt on his shoulder. Jeff Jones, "Hey, Codes, I need that belt. We need it in photography. I'll be there in a minute. I got to go talk to my dad about this." He had that belt on his shoulder a good hour plus. Oh
my goodness.
You see that, Conrad?
I cannot wait to talk about this. Listen, I can't believe this is real. This is going to be a fun episode. We are talking about Jeff Hardy today, but of course we're going to talk about that video game match that had, as Bruce Pritchard sometimes annoyingly says, Twitter was blowing up. But boy, they were.
Woo,
we're going to talk all about it. But really, what we want to do right now is we want to talk about WrestleQuest. WrestleQuest from MegaCat Studios. I can't believe this is real. Is now available. It's a love letter to classic role-playing games, the pixel art of our youth, the golden era of professional wrestling. Powerbomb your way through a massive game where the worlds of toys, action figures and wrestling collide. It's a sweaty, spectacular pro wrestling take on the cherished Japanese role-playing game genre. We're talking 40 plus hours of core story content, 20 fully licensed pro wrestling legends like Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, Jake the Snake, DDP, Jeff Jarrett, and more. The list just spans decades of various promotions featuring talent from all over the world. There you go. Yeah, take a look. There's Double J right there doing his thing. It's more than just statues, by the way. Each legend has their own side quest, and players can actually earn wrestler signature gear or the right to call upon their finishing moves in combat. And in some cases, the wrestler can even join the player as their manager. You can cut promos on your opponents before fighting them in the ring, and you can customize your walk-on routine. You can include theme music and pyrotechnics and other effects. WrestleQuest is available now for PC, consoles, and mobile. And we figured, hey man, if we're celebrating WrestleQuest, who better to bring in than one of the creators and the genius minds behind this wonderful game? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. James from WrestleQuest. How about it? Let's give him a round of applause.
Oh man, I've never felt so invited before. Thanks for having me, guys.
Man, I'm excited to have you on here on the program because we've got a lot to discuss. I mean, I got to tell you, I've had my whole friends and family lined up, ready to get this game, and we know it's out today. People can go pick it up. But we had a bit of a stop and start here because I thought this was going to happen 2 weeks ago. And my mom, who actually has a Conrad action figure, I can't believe that's a thing, she's going to buy the game. And I'm like, Mom, you don't even have a system. She goes, yeah, but I can tell people you're in it. And I'm like, but Mom, hang on now. You got to figure out how to download it and the whole deal. And so I'm trying to catch Mom up. She thinks it's 1985 with Nintendo. But I'm like, Mom, we're going to get you with the program. It comes out today. And then it didn't. And I was talking to Jeff Jarrett, and he says there's some rat soup eating MFer out there named Greg Miller who had to learn the hard way about what the Last Outlaw was all about. What's going on, James? What's the circumstance here? What's Greg doing? Is he out of control? Do we need to get him? Or do we need to put our Twitter army on him, or what's that look like?
I'm glad you asked, Conrad, and I'm glad you mentioned Nintendo because I am the pong ball between two paddles, which is Jeff and Greg right now.
Okay.
You know, like it all seems so obvious and simple when Greg had us on the show to talk about WrestleQuest since he's been a big fan. And one guitar shot led to another, and Greg's now not just acting out a character essentially daily, but like he's decided to throw his weight around. Delayed WrestleQuest every day. All we're doing is answering customer support messages from fans and community members who've been marketing on their calendars and daily waking up and wondering if today's the day they can play. And Greg's holding it back from everyone because you mentioned it. He's a rat soup eating. Was that a motherfucker?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you can say it. We allow that language here on the show.
I love rat soup eating, by the way. It's such a good way to describe that man in a neck brace.
I mean, let's throw that picture up there again, Marcus. You know, listen, I've heard the phrase before, punchable face, but this is it. That's a face that deserves a guitar necklace, and I'm glad he got one. But Jeff, what are we going to do? Like, this cat's still out of control, or is the game really actually out today, or are you going to have to do a do-over?
Oh, good God almighty. Boys, the one thing you said, Conrad, that and we've talked about this since almost the launch of My World, Conrad.
Yeah.
It's got to be close to that, right? So, you know, if you're watching the YouTube version of My World, if you're hearing my man James Deegan, he had this Conrad, at some point, we'll do a whole episode on this because the stories of, you know, I'm telling you, Conrad, it's fascinating. James reached out to the estate of Macho Man Randy Savage, the estate of Andre the Giant, the Road Warriors. Just kind of, Conrad, this is so up your alley. I may even set out this episode of My World, but just, it's truly a passion, a labor of love. MegaCat Studios, based out of Pittsburgh. James and his team have made video games for years and super successful. And they just kind of had this idea that, man, we'd love to do a Japanese role-playing game, which is obviously not a simulation like AEW Fight Forever. And he just had this idea, and the little engine could that I respect so much. And we had basically a cold call several years ago, and not about WrestleQuest. And then one thing led to another, and me and James actually are partners now in Moonsault Digital. And, you know, the WrestleQuest journey has gone all along, and we got right to the finish line. August 7th, I'm in San Francisco doing the media rounds. Greg Miller, for folks that don't know, I guess you could say his branding is he's a gaming influencer. He has YouTube shows, Twitch shows. Kinda Funny is his brand. Well, his Kinda Funny ass got cracked because I came on his show, very gracious. There's, that's the after effect. But I sat on his couch and let him interview me, and he took pot shot after pot shot after pot shot at me. And kind of, you know me well enough. Push come to shove, it all rolled downhill, and he was trying to close the show out, and he got exactly what Cassio got, except a little bit stiffer. Yeah, and Cassio can relate to that. Conrad, you've been at ringside when old Red Light Jeff is around, right?
Dude, it's you become another human being, and I'm glad he got what he deserved. I mean, I'm glad the game is finally out. And listen, I love the way this game looks. It looks like the games I grew up on, and it's got the characters I grew up on. James, do you mind sharing some of the other legends that are in this game? I mean, we see Macho Man pretty loud and proud, and Andre the Giant, but who are some of the other cast of characters that are involved?
We have a pretty wild cast. It's exciting to see fans finally get a chance to explore. JYD, Rocky Johnson, Mike Rotunda, LA Park, just stacks and stacks of characters from every promotion region, but generally in this 80s and 90s era that fits this nostalgia fantasy world that we created.
Hey, give us some of because you can rattle them off quicker than I can, and I've already stooged off the I guess one of the biggest Easter eggs. Of course, our man, the Podfather, is in this game, but some of the influencer Easter eggs. This is why, if you're a wrestling fan, if you're listening to my world, you don't have to be this crazy gamer. If you love professional wrestling in the 80s and 90s, which I think that is what Conrad has built his one of his empires around. It's truly right up your alley. So this is kind of a match made in heaven. But lay out some of the influence, which I think one after another. For those that don't know, my role is executive producer of wrestling, but I had no idea what the Easter egg strategy was. So lay it on us, James.
I mean, I guess we have to start with some of the talent, and I don't want to just rattle names off all day, but Road Warriors, Sergeant Slaughter, Luna Vachon, Andre, Macho, Nasty Boys, Conan, Al Snow, DDP, Jeff Jarrett 3 times, Jake the Snake, Coco Beware, King Kong Bundy, British Bulldog. We mentioned Junkyard Dog and Rocky, Bull Nakano, Sonny Ono, Bruiser Brody.
Bruiser Brody's in this game?
Yes,
yeah.
Bruiser Brody, baby. It goes on and on. It's amazing. Go ahead.
James, is this the first time Bruiser Brody's been in a video game?
It is, actually. Yeah, it's funny because Bruiser Brody was one of the first talent we reached out to. It was right around that time of the launch of that Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Yep.
So it was definitely timed in a unique way for more casual wrestling fans to kind of learn about this interesting legend story. Captain Lou, Warlord, Booker, Charmel, Super Porky.
Super Porky's in this game. That's the Dave Silva character. I love it, man.
Not only is Super Porky in the game, but for any gamers listening, Super Porky is WrestleQuest's version of a Snorlax, if you know what that is. So it's not actually these kind of larger than life mythical beasts that fall asleep and they block paths and they block bridges and they kind of prevent you from egress and moving forward in your life. So you have to usually play a magical flute or find some other way to trick them out of the way. But Super Porky, there's a way to get them. There's a certain turkey leg that'll light the scoreboard up.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it's fascinating. The whole game is fascinating, and it's truly what we all love. It's not so much the in-ring component of it; it's everything around it: the story, the pageantry, the colors, the glitz, the glamour. I love it. I'm so damn excited, and we finally got here. F. Greg Miller.
And
yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Conrad. I want to talk about the Conrad moment in the game since we're hanging out live.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
Oh, I got it.
So when we first had the honor to include you, Conrad, it actually opened up an entire new fandom strategy for us. So we were at the next trade show. It was MagFest, which is a big gaming event in National Harbor, Maryland. And we were setting up, doing the WrestleQuest demo. Fans are waiting 2-3 hours in line, just excited to get their hands on it. And we had fan after fan that started just popping for the intro sequence of the game, but the Podfather is running the podcast network. Because in WrestleQuest, like the way you receive all wrestling news in the center of the wrestling world extends from this podcast chorus, like the Shakespearean chorus, how the stories are told. So we were just watching fans just literally pop and blow back in the in front of the screen, shocked and awed that not only do we have these great legends from the yesteryear, but we have Conrad Thompson, and it actually created an entire new initiative, I guess, at MegaCat for the WrestleQuest team to look at, if you're a wrestling fan in 2023, who are the wish lists that are part of the world? If you're a casual fan that's lapsed, or you're trying to jump back into wrestling and kind of immerse yourself for the first time in a while, like who are the talent and celebrity that they have to jump into and see? And then for your hardcore fans that can't live without Conrad, like are we delivering on that promise? And that's how we ended up actually looking out for Wrestling Observer and Meltzer and Chris Van Vliet and all the other, probably 25 other content creators.
Wait. Dave Meltzer's in this game?
Dave Meltzer's in the game, and he knows you're in the game first, Conrad.
We're missing a point here, Hall of Famer. Hey, partner, Hall of Famer, this is the gospel. Had old Connie not entered into this WrestleQuest universe, Meltzer, no. As Scott Ray would say, Chris Van Vliet, no. And we could go all the way down the influencer list. None of them would be in the game if Conrad Thompson. That is a shoot, brother. Seriously,
well,
how about that story? I love it.
Here's what Jeff wants to know. Is Jeff able to hit Dave Meltzer with a guitar in the game?
A lot of people ask Conrad. I'm answering messages all day long from our team. They can't keep up with the volume. And, the way you actually interact with the legends, and this is important, is you don't play as Jeff Jarrett. You don't play as Dave Meltzer. In the case of Jeff, there are cities built in his honor, right? So there's like wayward wrestlers can go to this Statue of Liberty City Center and look up and say, Jeff, what do I do with my gimmick? Like, what is next? Like, am I a heel or a face? How do I get started? How do I become who I intended to be? Like, what is the path forward to follow in your footsteps? And that's like part of the high fantasy and exploration of WrestleQuest, because it's not just Andre as a character. It's Andre can surface and break an entire wrestling ring in half because he's actually a giant, right? It's so it's definitely the wrestling fan spectacle, but rich storytelling. So RPGs are storytelling mediums. It's different than a simulation game. But to answer your question, you can't currently hit Dave with a guitar. That was in his contract. He said, please don't hit me with a guitar.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
I'll keep it in the note, but hopefully in DLC.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. We got to do that. And we got to get one to Brian Alvarez and Wade Keller. And I mean, I know that Jeff just wants to lay waste. Well, listen, let's tell everybody where they can get the game and on what platforms, James.
So WrestleQuest is on all platforms that gaming can be played on. It's a PlayStation 4, 5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox X, Xbox S, Steam, GOG, Epic, Netflix Mobile, iOS, and Android. So we're everywhere. We hope everyone's ready to get sweaty, because we have a big adventure for you to jump into.
Where is there a preferred place to pick the game up, or just anywhere?
WrestleQuest.com, but
we're going to be codes out. I mean, seriously, Conrad, there are going to be codes. If you're listening to this, James, isn't that the easiest way? Because I asked that. I'm like, hey, Conrad's taught me a lot in my day. But you got to make it easy for them to purchase, right? My social media, or let me just say, the ad-free social media. Brother Green, we're getting links and codes. You click there, and boom, that's how you get it. It's easy. Yeah.
Well, check it out, man. WrestleQuest is available now. James, we appreciate all the time. I can't wait for us to have you back on. Maybe sometime in the future, Jeff and I can play each other and you can play referee. I've always wanted to have Jeff put me over. He just won't do it.
We all have dreams. I understand. I appreciate you guys having me. I'd love to see, by the way, anyone that's in support of ad-free shows. make their way over to Greg Miller's Twitter. Let them know how you feel.
Yes.
Hey,
Man, that is a great call.
Do you have that off the top of your head? I could look it up but
Kind of funny, Greg.
Yep. Is that what his Twitter is? Sorry that I don't have this ready available, but
it's funny. I actually unfollowed him.
As you should.
It's Game Over Greggy with 2 G's. Game Over Greggy. Game Over Greggy. Light him up, folks. Light his ass up.
I mean, I just blocked him. That's what I did. I want him out of my life forever. I'm glad WrestleQuest is here, and it's here for you. Go pick it up. We'll have links in the description for this podcast as well. And of course, you can check us out at My World Pod, or just follow Double J on social. James, thanks for all the time today, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about WrestleQuest, and thanks for making mine and my mama's dreams come true. I'm in a video game. What in the world?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having us.
Hey, today, my man. Congrats
later.
The whole team. See you, James.
Thank you. See you.
Jeff, real talk now. I mean, as folks are listening to this, you and I are about to walk on stage at Podcast Movement in Denver. And then as soon as that's done, as we're celebrating, I mean, we're going to be together. Yep. You know, when everybody's playing this game, we're going to be together on stage, and then you're going to hop on a plane and get over to Duluth, Georgia.
Yep.
And make sure that we've got Dynamite and Collision ready to go.
Shivani, this picks me up, good old.
He won't. And if he does, the inside of his red, brand new Range Rover. Did you know that? He's got a brand new Range Rover.
Shut the front door.
I swear. You can't hide money.
Yeah.
You can't hide money. That's that Britt Baker influence on him. Anyway, as I understand it, Jeff, this is the most attended wrestling event maybe of my lifetime outside of Korea or something crazy like that. I mean, over 80,000 tickets are sold. And this is a show we're going to study and talk about for a long, long time. We're just a few days away. Wembley Stadium, All In, London. Can we even put into words how big this is for AEW and just the wrestling business as a whole?
So, and Conrad, we have been so busy this summer. Me and you have not had our fireside chats like we have
usually do. Yes.
Yeah. And here's something that in a lot of ways, I don't want to call it the rule book, but the status quo, or when you hear where I'm going with this, I think you'll have, it has been such a incredible experience up to this point, because north of 70,000 tickets were sold without one match announced.
Jeff, that to me is the most fascinating thing. I think we will study this show forever.
Yes.
Because the reality is, on some level, and I think you know what I mean, but I mean no disrespect to the very talented AEW roster or Tony Khan as a booker, but the star of the show is almost the building. It's like people were so excited. Yes, I love AEW, but there is a major wrestling event happening at this building. We got to go. And I'm not saying that they weren't there to say AEW. I don't mean to say that wrong. I'm just saying the conversation hasn't been about, man, I can't wait to see this guy wrestle that guy as we sold those 70,000 tickets. It was about, man, I can't believe AEW is running Wembley Stadium. Like, on some level, the building is the attraction. And Eric Bischoff said it so eloquently last week on 83 Weeks. The star of the show on this one is the fans. It's going to be just a sea of humanity. I mean, there's some pretty iconic theme songs in AEW. And can you imagine how a guy like Mikey Ruckus, who by the way is going to be on stage talking about the music of AEW, and your old pal Dale Oliver. I don't think he's ever done anything like this before, but their theme songs are going to be echoing through a place where we've seen U2 concerts that people still talk about to this day. And we've seen Queen concerts. And I mean, these are legendary moments. And man, just the SummerSlam show over there from 92 is still discussed in such reverence. I mean, this is the AEW WrestleMania 3, and it's this Sunday. And they did it without having Hogan and Andre announced. And based on what I understand, like, more people will be at that show maybe than even get a chance to watch the show on a weekly basis over there. This is just, it's one for the history books, man. It's really amazing.
And I'll take a little bit different twist where we are saying the same thing, but a little bit different. Hypothetically speaking, if you would have announced Impact Wrestling at Wembley Stadium, they wouldn't have sold 70,000 tickets. If you would have announced New Japan Pro Wrestling, if you would have announced AAA, I'm trying to stay in the wrestling genre, but also, you know, when the brand of NFL goes to the United Kingdom, is it really the Cowboys that draw? Is it really the Bears? We both know. No, it's the spectacle of the brand playing on their their pitch. So, and look, and I know WWE was successful in Cardiff. I'm not so sure. This may ruffle some feathers. I'm not so sure. There's a different business model, but when you think, because they've been in the market since the 80s, but the first time, that's why Conrad just out of the rule book and the thought process.
You build, Jeff. You run a smaller show, then you build to the bigger show. You don't start with a dome.
What I'm saying is all of that's thrown out the window.
Yes.
Announced, start as big as you possibly can. There's other arenas. Glasgow's got, I mean, there's not arenas, stadiums. There's stadiums, several of them. But you start with Wembley on the 100th anniversary, no match announced, just the brand is coming. Conrad.
And not only that, Jeff, we haven't even mentioned this. I'm going to be watching from Alabama. Believe it or not, WWE's running a house show in Huntsville at the Von Braun Center the same day.
Yeah.
So some of my best friends and my sister-in-law, and they're all going to be in town. So we're going to be doing a family barbecue at my house. And at noon, I'll turn on my AEW pay-per-view. Not 7:00 at night, not 8:00 at night, not on a Saturday night, not on a Sunday night. Like, church gets out, okay, let's go watch Chris Jericho and Will Ospreay. What?
Yeah.
I mean, this throws out all the rules, and it still worked. But you're exactly right. The biggest gamble it was the first time. Like, when I heard, hey, they're running Wembley, I assumed, oh man, that's awesome. They're finally going. They'll sell out that arena, no problem. No, it's not Wembley Arena. It's Wembley Stadium.
Yep.
That's just amazing to me. I'm so happy for the boys and girls. I'm so happy for Tony Khan and AEW. And I'm really happy for wrestling fans, because that shows you that they were underserved. They were starved for it. They're ready for it. And if I'm honest with you, I'm kind of excited that we don't have all the matches announced. And I'm kind of excited that we don't know everything that's going to happen. At first, I thought, man, I really wish we had this great mega story I could sink my teeth into that we got excited about for 6 months. And I think a lot of people speculated, oh, well, based on what happened last year, they'll definitely do A, B, C, or whatever. But I'm happy with the matches that we've gotten. But I think there's enough leeway, because we know those AEW pay-per-views sometimes, well, they're not going to be a 2-hour affair. It might go a little longer. And since it's noon, I'll be game for that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a big deal. But man, they've got an opportunity. Can you imagine? And I'm not saying there are. I don't have any inside knowledge. I'm not asking you for any. But if there is just one surprise of any level that's not announced, that crowd is going to be so on fire. I mean, I'm really regretful that I'm not going to be a part of that crowd, because when people say, hey, if you had a time machine and you could go back and you could be at any one show, I always say WrestleMania 3. This is the AEW and UK equivalent of WrestleMania 3, and it happens this weekend. It's all in. Make plans to check it out. I'm not convinced they won't sell it out. There's only a handful of tickets left. I think they'll do it. And especially after they see what's going to happen, or what happened this past week, this past Friday night, or Saturday night rather, on Collision. But yeah, check it out, man. It's the home stretch tomorrow night. Jeff Jarrett, The Last Outlaw, in Duluth, Georgia. Tickets are on sale now, AEWTIX.com. And of course, 1 week after that, I say to myself, has anybody ever tried this before? Back-to-back pay-per-views. I know it happened once before in 1991 for Survivor Series. They had that controversial finish with The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan. They did a This Tuesday in Texas pay-per-view as a follow-up. But we're doing our traditional Labor Day all-out weekend, and it's in Chicago. We've been talking about it a lot here on the program. Hope you'll make plans to join us. The Last Outlaw will be there. We have just announced there will be a My World on stage, and it's happening on Saturday. As I understand it, Jeff, Sanjay Dutt might be there. As I understand it, Jeff, Jay Lethal might be there. The rumor is Karen Jarrett might be there. If Satnam Singh's there, we're going to have to raise the ceilings. I mean, what? And I don't know what you've got planned.
Oh boy!
But I've already told Dawkins, hey man, anybody who is within earshot of Jeff Jarrett's panel needs to sign a waiver. And I doubled up my insurance because I saw what you did to Greg Miller, and I don't need that happening at my event. Can you promise me you won't get me in legal trouble?
We did the deal in Dallas. Oh, Cassio got a taste of the Last Outlaw.
He still doesn't. He's lost 30 pounds. Have you seen Cassio lately?
No.
It's because you ruined his taste buds. He can't taste food anymore.
Oh, I thought because he's nervous because he knows he's going to have to see me in his Labor Day weekend. As we say here in the South, you slap the taste out of his mouth. So anyway, I need you to just promise me, just friend to friend, you won't hurt anybody. Conrad, here's a guarantee: there will be fireworks.
No.
Yes, without
Jeff
and Satnam Singh, just to see him up close. Folks, if you're coming, just to get up close to Satnam, and you're going to have an opportunity. I'm talking to your underlings, Conrad, about maybe a photo op. There's going to be something special there. But the group is going to be in the house, and maybe that Leatherface championship. But no, I'm super pumped because just what you kind of laid out there. It is such a special time, and Wembley. You've really gone into detail on that. But when I really think about how big it is, like the territory promoters, and that includes in the UK and in Europe, and yes, WrestleMania was a different. It was a different era. Vince got into cable TV and took it nationwide and syndication, but here we are, 30-something years, almost 40 years later. It's just, this is a first. We just hit it. I still am no match. First time in the market. Crazy. I'll just, it's something else, pal, but I'm pumped. As you can tell, I've been, damn dude, what a month, but we got a great topic today, so I can keep
We do have a great topic today. Our topic today is Jeff Hardy. Not only will Jeff Jarrett be at StarCast, so will Jeff Hardy. Get your bracelets right now. That's STARRCAST.com. We're so impressed with what's happening here with AEW. I just want to remind everybody that right after Wembley Stadium, the next Friday, so that huge show, that monumental show, is going to be on Friday or on Saturday. I'll get it right, on Sunday afternoon. But the following Friday, we've got Tony Khan and what will probably be his first long form interview on the heels of that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure he's going to be discussing the success and the challenges of Wembley. And I'm also sure that he's going to be talking about this creative idea he's got of back-to-back pay-per-views just a week apart. That is going to be the very first time Tony Khan is on a StarCast stage. It's happening Friday. You don't want to miss it. Pick up your bracelets now. You don't just get that panel. You get 2 stages, panels all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, more than you can shake a stick at. And if you can't make it to Chicago, well, you can watch all the fun over on Premiere. That's StarCastOnPremiere.com, StarCastOnPremiere.com. But Jeff, I don't know how you're doing all this. I don't know how you're keeping up with all this. I mean, as I said, as folks are listening to this, we're in Denver today. What were you saying, Jeff?
I know that there's a big factor of keeping me running energy. But before we go any further, I just got to ask you, because our line that we run on here, especially heavy the last 3, 4, 5 months, creative is subjective. Did you get a chance to see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Deathmatch?
I'll tell you this. I'm glad I ate my Factor meal right before I watched, because I would have lost my appetite. Factor, though, that's how Jeff is keeping fueled up to destroy Jeff Hardy, to win Texas Chainsaw Championships, to fly to Wembley, to run down to Chicago, to drop a video game, to be on stage in Denver, to ruin lives and kiss babies and everything in between in Duluth. He is ready to go because Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. You see, Jeff ain't got time for grocery shopping and cooking and chopping. You know what he's got time for? He's going to slide that Factor cover off. He's going to pop a couple holes in the top. Boom. 2 minutes later, he's eating chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys. We've had a few of these type sponsors. My wife loves this one the most. I do too. It tastes great. It's better for you. And by the way, it gets you out of your rut. They've got 34 different weekly flavor-packed, dietitian-approved meals. They're all ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You've got gourmet plus options. You can eat, man, I'm talking about fancy stuff. You want some filet? They got it. You want broccolini? You want truffle butter? That's right, truffle butter, buddy. How about that? All dietitian approved, all ready in just 2 minutes. And there's something for every lifestyle. If you're like Jeff, maybe you're trying to bulk up. They got Protein Plus with 30 grams of protein. Maybe you're trying to drop some lbs. Well, how about Calorie Smart? They can hook you up with meals that are 550 in calories or less. And how about lunch to go? Maybe you don't have an opportunity to have a microwave at your job. Well, they got you. You can actually take lunch with you and you don't need a microwave. They can cover your whole day too. Yes, they've got your snacks like your smoothies and your cold pressed juices and things like that. But they got breakfast too, man. How does some apple cinnamon pancakes? They got a ton of these different options for you to look at. They're all ready in just 2 minutes. They're healthier for you. They taste better. They're faster. They're cheaper. What are you waiting for? Head now to factormeals.com/myworld50. Use the code myworld50. We're going to get you 50% off. That's code myworld50 at factormeals.com/myworld50 to get 50% off. So Jeff, let's talk about the, I would say elephant in the room, but I guess we'll call it the chainsaw in the room. First of all, I'm sure it was a huge vote of confidence for you to be tabbed again with a big sponsored element. And I know that this has become a thing in wrestling, and I'm really happy about it. And the first time I remember seeing an integration like this was a few years ago. This was Attack of Zombies or something for The Walking Dead. But a couple years ago at WrestleMania, we had a Bray Wyatt Mountain Dew type match. Then we had the whole Slim Jim sponsorship that LA Knight won at SummerSlam. Yeah. And from what I understand, that gate for that show was like number 9 all time for wrestling in North America at $8.5 million. But folks, we discussed the business of professional wrestling on this show. The sponsorship for SummerSlam was $7 million, meaning they made almost as much money. And by the way, after you take away ticketing fees, it's even closer than that. They were within $1 million of each other. So you're talking about wrestling companies are now able to almost double the money they normally make from running a live event through these sponsored shows. So I know there was some criticism online about the creative for this. I love that you always remind us creative is subjective. I just want to remind you too, as you're getting on your high horse and dictating to everybody else what wrestling should or shouldn't be, 100% of that money went to the victims in Maui. So the ticket sales from the folks who were in Nashville and all the money that was brought in from that sponsorship for that match went to Maui. And boys and girls, if you like wrestling and you like video games, you had to enjoy that. I went into the match. I wasn't able to see it live. I had a death in the family this week, and that was a little bit chaotic. So I didn't get to see it live, but I saw it before we recorded today. But I'd seen the criticism ahead of time, Jeff, and I thought to myself, this was fun. It was a fun match. That's what it's supposed to be. Not everything is supposed to be Lou Thez and Nick Bockwinkel. It's okay if every now and again we have fun. And my takeaway from it was, I wish Jeff wasn't always the last outlaw, because if he was wearing his white Venetian blinds, that blood would have looked really cool. I'm really glad that Jeff Hardy and Karen were pros running around in their white. And I thought Jay Lethal should rock more cowboy boots. That was cool. I mean, I thought it was a fun match. I knew what it was for charity. I knew it's all going to a great cause. And I knew as soon as they announced the match and that there was a belt involved, well, Jeff's taking home the hardware. I mean, that's what you do. You stacked up Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks just 2 weeks ago. You're still the uncrowned tag team champions, and everybody knows it. But now you're the Texas Chainsaw Massacre champion. Is that on Wikipedia yet? We got to get that on Wikipedia. What's the holdup?
I was waiting for this build up because I knew you had something special. But Conrad, well, I'll address the criticism first because that's probably what you want. But I told the guy, my buddy in the gym this morning, who I'll just say he loves, well, he loves, he's not a fan. I'll describe what type of fan he is. He's not down with Lucha Libre. He says it doesn't make a lot of sense. He loves Japanese wrestling. He's not so much a fan of WWE. He just kind of likes the no nonsense strong style. He leans more into that. And he came up and he said, man, he said, why? And now this shocked me. He's like, man, there's some people been out of shape online. What do you think about that? And I said, well, let me ask you, why do you like it? Because you're shocking me that you liked it. He said, well, when you hear the title, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Deathmatch, right out of the gate, you kind of know you're not going to be getting any hurricanranas and German suplexes and all that. But he said he kind of set the table. But then he's like, well, what do you think? And I said, the biggest disappointment I would have had by far, and I told Karen this, is if there would have been no feedback. The point that there was people that this made them so divisive, that somebody cared so much or cares so much about the AEW brand that they tune into Twitter or Instagram. And that's another point. Twitter is much more divisive and I'll call it mean-spirited than Instagram ever thought of, because you kind of read the different comments. In YouTube, that's a different audience too. But Conrad, I really thought that way, the sponsor, exact words, incredible, way over delivered. Okay. So that's a win. It's my understanding across the board, the network, because they're the ones that, I guess they now have, and, it's not that this is the first, and certainly it's not going to be the last, but, when you build a deck and, hey, we did this for this client, all that, obviously it goes without saying, the top man, TK, super excited. And look, his sole decision, that was up to him when the funds going to Maui. That kind of says so much to me. Yeah. But the audience being so passionate about it, I love that. Okay, that lit a nerve. Not always good. Some people just didn't like it, but I loved it. I thought it was an honor to be in that type of integration. It was definitely out of the box. I thought Jeff Hardy and his entire crew, you can say, executed it to a T.
Yes.
But when we, and I'm not a horror movie guy, but Leatherface, that clip of him walking down the aisle and throwing the chainsaw, and he was supposed to be on our side, but Sanjay got his ass kicked and Karen ran off, and all the integration. I was, that's a nice shot right there of Karen. Just look at the images in the background, production across the board. It was a grand slam in so many ways. And for those that didn't like this kind of stuff, I will say this without question. It certainly will make you appreciate more your 4- and 5-star matches. So yes, it actually served a purpose to you as well. It will make you appreciate, hey, I don't like that integration stuff. I like this stuff. So I'm super excited that I'll just mission accomplished.
Well, here's the thing, and we've talked about this before. When I was watching wrestling with my daughter back when she was really into it, Naomi came out and she had her world title belt glowing. She had put those LED lights all around it. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe they're doing that. And then my daughter, Kansas, goes, oh, my God, Dad, that's the coolest thing ever. And then it clicked for me. It was like, you know what? I'm sure my dad thought when Ted DiBiase unveiled a $sign belt, the $1 million belt, that he thought, this is just stupid. Yes. But as a kid, I was like, the $1 million belt, man, that's the coolest thing ever. So I would just say, I've learned from you, but I knew that in her context then, because I thought, I'm not going to crap on this, because I recognized, hey, that's just not for me. And I've heard once upon a time that Dusty Rhodes used to make an analogy that wrestling should be like a buffet. You're not serving the same thing to every person. Like, you may skip the macaroni and cheese and go eat something else, but somebody's going to love that macaroni and cheese. So this match was, maybe if you hated it, just not for you, but that's not to say it wasn't for somebody. there is a teenager out there, there's a young person out there, there's a horror fan out there who thought it was super fun and loved it. And what I like most of all is it went for charity. Guys, we donated all the cash. And by the way, it's another great revenue stream for wrestling. Like, I don't know what the dollar figure was. And I guess I heard it, but I'm not going to say it because that's probably whatever. But the idea is that would be a substantial gate for a house show in one match. That's great for the business. That's great for it's a win for everybody.
Conrad, I'll just let you in on this. The number that's being reported online, that's why I haven't commented on it. It's way low.
I thought it was because I thought that just can't be real because we know what other folks have paid for similar stuff.
Yes, it blew me away. And like you said, the SummerSlam analogy and the last year's Mania analogy. And gosh, when you kind of look at just the wrestling industry as a whole, because, and let me back way up out of that. Sporting events, MMA, boxing, that's just a small part of live events. Football, basketball, baseball, and other parts of the world, soccer and cricket and all that. Well, these live events, well, guess what, folks? Wrestling is 52 weeks a year. Now that sponsor dollars are being integrated in a big, big way because we're not trying to get into pop culture. We are a part of pop culture. It's just going to be more dollars into the industry, which means the rising tide lifts everyone, including this podcast and including across the board. Everybody benefits when more and more sponsorship dollars get engaged. So that to me is by far the biggest win.
But on this one in particular, it went to freaking charity. My goodness. Listen, I know that there's a lot of magic that we reveal here on the show, and sometimes we don't reveal magic. But I'm curious, George, who was playing Leatherface? Can you tell us?
I'd rather not.
Okay, can you text me later?
Oh, for sure. And you're not the first person that's asked me that.
Well, I'll tell you this. I loved the look and the presentation of it. I know it was silly, but I knew it was fun. But maybe one of my favorite things, besides Jay Lethal in a cowboy boots, and besides Sanjay in a Western shirt, can we just throw that picture up there again? Look at Satnam Singh. Satnam looks like he's right out of a horror movie, and all he's got is just one of the snaps done on the overalls. If that became his new look, I mean, I'm for it. He looks like he's right out of Men in Black or something.
Look at his face. And there was Conrad, the last time I was in Bridgetown, was that the last time me and you were there for another promotion? Anyway, yeah. It was, but that was obviously a different day. But last Wednesday was one of the, arrived at the building at noon and we never slowed down. There was a lot of moving parts. But Satnam, there's so many moving parts, but I'm like, and if he could have been, I'll just say in a makeup chair, that was all done in under 10 minutes. I'm like, hey man, can you put a buddy of mine who was sitting second row, he just told me that he could not quit talking about it. He said, Satnam Singh is the biggest human being I've ever seen. He said, Jeff, he made you look tiny in your anyway. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Conrad, and we've said this on there. At this stage in my career, to get to be involved in that type of integration and on that level, from not just the in-ring part, I'm talking about from the business perspective.
Yes.
Connie, I'll just say this. My dad would be grinning from ear to ear just on the integration part. I mean, that's because it's business. So
it's a vote of confidence in you. And it shows, respectfully at this stage of your career, you got to think, man, I'm playing with house money. I mean, this is just a real honor and opportunity and blessing to be here. I mean, when you and I started this podcast, you thought, well, I'm an executive. I'm not doing matches. I mean, promoters were hitting you up all the time. And you're like, no, I mean, I'll come wave and do autographs, but I don't do that anymore. And now here you are in a video integration in prime time on Turner, destroying Jeff Hardy. And he is our topic today. I'll be honest, Jeff, we have had so much fun talking about other stuff. I'm not sure that we're going to have time to pay really justice to Jeff Hardy. But I know this. I want wrestling fans, because I know we're putting a button on that match. I think just rushing to social and being critical and telling everyone what wrestling should be, I wish we could get out of that habit. I think that has become a bad habit of us thinking that our opinion is the only one that's valid. Everything on the show should be catered to me. I watch a lot of other programs with my wife every week. She likes the show Physical. I don't love every episode, but I watch it with her, and she really enjoys that show. But that show's probably just not for me. But that doesn't mean she doesn't enjoy it. I wish we'd get out of that bad habit. And, cold turkey can be great on sandwiches, but there is a better way for you to break your bad habits. And I'm not talking about some weird voodoo from your crazy neighbor, or maybe some of that Dave Meltzerism, if you will. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. You see, they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Well, Fume is an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. You see, instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy, and it makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for your fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. My wife has loved this product. She wasn't too sure about it at first because, well, it was new, but she was excited to try it, and she loved the mint flavor. I think you will too. They've got tons of great flavors for you to try, but it was way more flavorful and way fresher than she ever imagined. And she also liked the way it just felt in her hand. She said it was well weighted, perfectly balanced, and extremely fun to fidget with. And how about this? I just want to compliment the design of the thing. It's beautiful, real wood. It's a cool shape. You just feel cool using it. Well, stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. There's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use the code MyWorld to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code MyWorld to save an additional 10% off your order today. One more time, head to tryfume.com/MyWorld, use the code MyWorld, and you'll save an additional 10% off your order today. So, hey, man, we just sort of glossed over the whole Jeff Hardy part of this. I got to look it up, but when was the last time you were in the ring with Jeff Hardy before this past Wednesday?
Oh my gosh. So doing the research on this, which we've kind of been talking about, the Jeff Hardy single episode or standalone episode, however you guys call it, kind of been back and forth in discussion, but Conrad, it's got to be the TNA days.
I'm looking it up right now, and I guess, believe it or not, as silly as this was, it was the 2019 Royal Rumble. You guys were in there. I don't know that I really count that, but if we did, that you were both in that match. But the last time you got
first 5 minutes of that match, yeah. Okay.
The TNA Final Resolution 2011. Yeah, he beat you in a steel cage in 9 minutes and 45 seconds. So December 11th, 2011. Isn't that crazy to think? I mean, this is a guy you've known forever and ever and ever, and the last time you were in the ring with him was 12 years ago.
Conrad, I'll let you close this up or bury it or go away with it or however you want to say it. But I'll just say this: both of our journeys have been up and down, but there's maybe a different meeting or a side meeting or underlying meeting, and you go to a two shot here, Marcus, because the fact that Jeff Hardy versus Jeff Jarrett in a death match in 2023, it's not our first death match. Maybe against each other, but and we won again. Make sense?
I appreciate everything you just said. You know, what I would like to do, because man, I think Jeff Hardy is one of the great success stories in wrestling. And he
Oh.
used to be called the Charismatic Enigma, but he has a story that is unlike anybody else. We have 15 pages worth of notes, and we've just had so much fun talking about everything else. I don't know that I want to break it down with
Okay.
every painstaking detail today. I do want to do that, but I think I want to just talk a little bit today about Jeff Hardy, the person, because what I know of my conversations with you about Jeff, I mean, I think the number of times we talked about Jeff, the wrestling performer, 0. And the number of times we talked about Jeff Hardy, your personal friend in real life, that's what the conversation was always about. And in my research, I found that I think the first time you shared a ring with Jeff, and I might have this wrong, so I want you to think back and see if this is right. It would have been a Shotgun Saturday Night when you were teaming up with Owen in Bakersfield, California, to take on the Hardy Boys. You guys went 5 minutes and 10 seconds. This is before the Hardys were the Hardys. I mean, they are young, up and coming whippersnappers. Again, this is March 14th, 1999. So WrestleMania 15 territory. That's where we were. Do you think that's the first time you were in the ring with them, or had they done enhancement matches with you before? Or what do you recall about meeting Jeff Hardy?
So, Marcus, pull that shot of Owen and Jeff up one more time. I'm going to ask Conrad a question. Zoom in.
Oh, I already know what you're going to say. Vanilla Ice.
Okay. So the first time I met Matt and Jeff, and this is 1994. We have to, but I'm pretty sure it's 1994. And this is when, I got there at the end of 93 and, the Double J push and all that. But back in those days, we did Raw on Mondays every 3 weeks. And we did Superstars on Tuesday, 3 weeks worth of taping. And Wednesdays would be 3 weeks worth of challenge tapings. Challenge tapings and Superstars were their enhancement matches. And that was when, at that time, I'll just say Scott Hall, he was taking me under his wing, so to speak, and Kevin, and I'd known Sean for years, but, we were not just traveling together, but, just hanging out. That was kind of the group. But I remember getting to TV and hearing Scott Hall come in and him basically saying who he wanted to work with on Tuesday and Wednesday. And he would say, hey man, I want Ice. I want Ice. I want that kid. I want this guy. And it was, I'm like, oh, okay. So there's kind of a trick to the trade. Scott's going to hand pick his enhancement guy.
I love that.
That was like a little learning lesson. Like you go, I'm like, okay, he's going to make the bad guy look really good because he could do all of his stuff. And Jeff, spectacular bump taker. But I can remember Scott would, people that really know Scott don't mind telling a story, the same story a couple of times. But Scott he was into, he's a good bump taper, but he's like, hey man, that dude's got charisma. That there is about that guy. That he's got charisma. He's got charisma. So hearing Scott call him, Jeff call him, hey, I want Ice and this and that, and kind of handpicking, that's when I first noticed Jeff. And I'm like, man, Scott's right. And I was just, at that stage of my career, show up, whoever, Tony Gurria or Rene Goulet or Chief Jane Strongbow, whatever agent, however it happened, I just, okay, this is who you're working with. Okay. I'm, maybe Bruce was pairing things up. I don't know, but I'm like, okay, I'll go to the ring and have the best enhancement match I can have with whatever opponent they give me. But Scott taught me that go after a guy you want. And that's the first time I laid eyes on Jeff, watched Jeff. And Scott was right. He has the charismatic enigma. And I know we're just talking about it, so I'm not getting out of chronological order. Jeff, to me, and I have said this, and this is a professional comment on him, but if you went up to any fan over the last 30 years, would you say, man, that Jeff Hardy, what a hell of a promo guy? No, probably not. Hey, Jeff Hardy, man, what a great in-ring wrestler, if you will.
General, yeah.
Nah, probably not. But there is something about, and then the people in the music industry totally dial into this. The uniqueness sets him apart. He is charisma, uniqueness, like The Rock. Oh man, he's a great talker and movie star looks and this and that. We could go down the line of, Hogan, Say Your Prayers, all the different. Jeff's uniqueness and relatableness, and I do him this is what attracted me him as man to man. His human nature, his energy sets him apart, and I think that has been his cash card, calling card, ticket to success. Is that I think people can look in his soul and go, that dude is cool. I like him. And you cannot bottle that up. It's hard to even describe, but the proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
He is a megastar over the last 30 years. And when he walked on stage last week in Bridgestone, the building erupted. I mean, it's really that simple.
It's what's interesting about Jeff is you're right. He does have, Vince McMahon used to talk about the airport test. Can the guy walk through the airport and people say, I don't know who that is, but that's somebody. And Jeff, I think a lot of times when Vince was applying that principle, he meant they're as tall as Kevin Nash or the Big Show or the Andres or the Hulk Hogan's. But when you meet Jeff, hey, I don't know who that is, but that's somebody. There's something about him, and maybe it's the crazy hair, or maybe it's the crazy earrings, or maybe it's the crazy tattoo, or maybe it's the crazy way he dresses, or the crazy way he moves, but there's something about him that's different. And I think one of the things that has resonated and made him such a long-lasting star is because people who do maybe feel like they're different are attracted to him because he embraces and leans into what makes him different. Does that make sense?
But you always put into words that is, when you look at Jeff and get to know him on a much deeper level, you begin to ask more questions than you have answers. But at an early age, Matt and Jeff lost their mother, and just the I'll call it the gentle soul. I think he's always carried that 12, 13, 14-year-old little boy in him, and it comes out. It's getting a little deep there, but he's not just different, because I think you can be different and be an asshole. I think you can be different and be aloof. I think you can be different and quirky and weird or whatever it may be. I just think there's different shades of being different. But that's why I always like to say Jeff is unique in a very, very positive way. He is unique. And when you see that uniqueness, climb to the top of a scaffold or the top of a ladder, and the other night off the top of the rope, swanton through a table, there's something about Jeff knows how to create moments, man, just by he's got that ability, creating moments. And when I can remember being in the studio, TNA, when you kind of put a clip reel together of magical moments that happened, man, you have to almost go to a challenge. Hey, man, we got too much Jeff Hardy in here, but he knows how to climb to the top of the rope or the top of the ladder, or top of scaffolding, whatever, pause, look at the people, let it soak in. You kind of feel you feel his emotion. And like you said, Conrad, I never thought of it that way. Jeff has an endearment that everyone, I believe, taking a breath at some point, you feel, man, I'm different. I don't belong here. And Jeff kind of
he embodies it and he embraces it, and he's successful because of it.
Yeah.
So instead of that differentness making him feel less than, his differentness makes him feel better than. And I think a lot of people who maybe take that feeling of, oh, I'm different, they feel less than, like, oh, I don't fit in. But it's kind of cool that Jeff doesn't fit in. And what I think is so cool too is Jeff has avoided, when people think of Jeff Hardy, they usually think of death-defying stunts and these crazy things that he's been able to do through his career, whether it's tables, ladders, and chairs and that sort of thing. But I feel like a lot of times when people talk about in a derogatory way, and I've never said this, but I've read it online. Oh, that guy's a spot monkey. He's just doing one spot after another. Jeff's never been called that because Jeff has psychology and understands it. And that was never more apparent to me. It stood out like a sore thumb because when I was watching y'all's crazy car crash match this past Wednesday, I watched it this morning before we clicked record. And there was a moment where there's so much going on. You got people fighting on the ramp, people fighting around the outside, smoke's coming out. There's all these different weapons. I mean, we're using hammers and chairs and crutches, and there's tables in every corner. But Jeff picks up a kendo stick, which seemingly isn't that crazy of a weapon. We've been used to it for decades now in wrestling, but he doesn't just pick it up and hit you with it. He picks, and the crowd is kind of in a lull because when there's so much going on, it's really hard to focus on one thing. So, because at that point, you've got really a split audience. You've got some people checking out Karen on the ramp. You got some people checking out Satnam over here and, oh, over there, Sanjay. So you don't really have that crowd on the same page cheering any one thing because there's just so much action, sort of like a battle royal or whatever. But Jeff holds the kendo stick up and spins it around before he hits you. And as he does, you could just hear that sound build and build and build. And I thought, man, that dude gets it. Like a lot of people would just pick it up and, hey, I'm just part of the fight. But Jeff heard the crowd that they're not there. Like, okay, this is not as loud as it should be. And he's like, all right, I got to get them with me. Here we go. And it's kind of slow. It's not fast like you expect Jeff Hardy, but it was a little slow and it built and built and built. And when the crowd got up, bam, then he nailed you with it. And I thought, man, that guy gets it. And I think that's what makes Jeff so special is it's not just what you do, but it's how you do it and when you do it. And man, no matter what you say, that's wrestling right there, is it not?
Conrad, and I'm really going to get in a little inside baseball here. So I want to be careful here, but when you have sponsor integration, this was the launch of a video game. There were certain parameters and certain requests made. And did you see the top of the match, Conrad? I'm going to take you back.
Yes.
Yes. But the big yellow, my bad, the big red board with all the different weapons.
Yes.
Okay. All of those. I mean, shit, that'd take my hand. I mean, one of them was a legit fox trap. One of them was, I mean, those were some pretty graphic deals, but you've got to get that kind of integration into sponsorship. If they're going to pay their dollars, you have to play ball with them, if you will. I love doing that kind of stuff. So knowing what was about to go down, I'll just say this, TK made an audible and I thought it was a fantastic call that, we were to start the match in the back. And
yes,
that's how it has to be done. But a little pivot was, let's let Jeff Hardy have his music and interests and let him take us to the bowels of Bridgestone Arena and take us to the scene. Jeff has the charisma to do that because when he came out on stage, the people popped. He got on the second rope inside the ring. The people were amped and all that because it's a challenge. I mean, the people in the arena, which is our sixth man, and they are very, very important to the television product. We, by design, unfortunately or fortunately, took them out of the game by going backstage. And then we had to do that long ass chase and all that. And it was shot different and horror movie. And Karen's got blood. That was the slipperiest, craziest. But anyway, so kind of doing all that. And John Wayne, Sanjay Dutt walks out of the white, all the integration elements that had to be put in. But you think back on Tony made the element, give Jeff an entrance, which wasn't a part of the original deal earlier in the day. But that's where the vote of confidence that, let's let Jeff bring the people with him. And he did. And it's funny, Conrad, how you noticed at the end, because that was kind of the game plan. Jeff, you get in there in the end and kick the dog shit out of me.
and it was a super fun match, and it just proved once again that Jeff Hardy was special. And I want to talk about, how special he was and how special it is, just y'all's history. And we're going to get in great detail on another episode about Jeff Hardy, but I do want to have some more broad strokes about his real life. But I just want to remind everybody, and this became a thing I was known for on Something to Wrestle. I would remind everybody that when people were making fun of Hulk Hogan for being too old and they were doing the Huckster and the Nacho Man, at that time, when we were recording with Bruce, AJ Styles was the same age that Hulk Hogan was then. Well, today, as crazy as this sounds, because it feels like we've seen Jeff Hardy on TV for like 30 years, he's 45 years old and he's still doing it. And that's not old. That's what I'm saying. He's at the top of his game. And the way he's doing that is because he's taking care of his body. And if you want to do that, you need to start every day with AG1. It's a daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day. I know Double J does. And this is something that my wife was using long before they were a sponsor. She was in the loop on it. She does it every morning on her way to work out. I do it every day before I know I'm going to have a stressful day. I used to have an afternoon crash. Man, about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'd feel like, man, do I need like a 10-minute power nap or what? I started AG1. That's not the case. Now, the reason I would take the power nap is not because I felt like I needed to necessarily feel better. I just felt like, man, I'm not as focused. I'm not as sharp. I'm off my game. I was on it this morning, but not now. I have more sustained energy, more sustained focus, more sustained clarity because of AG1. My wife says it makes her gut health better, and she can tell a difference in her energy and even her strength. She can tell if she misses a day when she's going and lifting, like, I just felt off my game. AG1 gets your body moving the way it's supposed to. It replaces your multivitamin. It replaces your probiotic. And by the way, this is just a simple drinkable habit. Think of it as like a micro habit with macro results. You're giving yourself the platform with 75 high quality ingredients to give you all the key daily nutrients you need to support things like energy and focus and strength and clarity. I love it. You will too. Jeff travels with it. You can actually have travel packs now, and we're going to show you how to do that. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to drinkag1.com/myworld. That's drinkag1.com/myworld. So, Jeff, what I find interesting about your career and your history with Jeff Hardy is you didn't just beat his ass and win that Texas Chainsaw Massacre match in the past calendar week. But in addition to that, you also wrestled him in the WWF. You've been across the ring from him in Independence. You've wrestled him in the WWE in that Royal Rumble. Now you've wrestled him in AEW. But most of y'all's time together was in TNA. And we're going to talk about how that circumstance came to be when we do our long form on Jeff Hardy. But Jeff Hardy, I feel like, is one of those game changer talents where it's like, wait a minute, y'all have him? Much like it was when you got Flair, much like it was when you got Hogan. Those were the stars of yesteryear. Jeff Hardy was the star of today. There were different times in Jeff's career where he was the top merchandise seller in WWE. So in the same way that when Kurt Angle came over, it gave credibility to TNA, I think Jeff Hardy's in that same vein. Would you agree?
Without question. And I was telling Derek when we were discussing research. So I started going to wrestling matches in the Nashville Sports Arena at the fairgrounds, 79, 80, 81. I mean, that was 78, 79, 80. It's really early. And so Lawler, the Fabs, Handsome Jimmy, Austin Idol, Tommy Rich for an era. I've heard some sold out crowds, had heard some really, really loud pops. And I mean, look, when Lawler, kind of, I don't want to say in his prime because it lasted forever, but when he was really, really hot as a babyface, and we would play, or he would play, whatever pop music, Eye of the Tiger, or whatever, a Rocky, whatever it is, when that music would come on through a boom box, you'd get a hell of a pop. And then when he would come through the curtain, it's a hell of a pop. And then when he pulled down his strap and the heel started bouncing, Conrad, just the building would explode. And everybody had kind of their different noises and all that the reaction. But, and I said it the night it happened, my dad looked at me and he goes, wow, okay, you may be right. The loudest pop, I guess Road Warrior pop, but no, the loudest pop I've ever heard at the Nashville Sports Arena. And when we do the long form, maybe we'll get the Impact Plus code and pop it up there. It was unbelievable. And we knew that, it would say we collectively, TNA, creative, just all of us, that we wanted to get him. But Jeff was coming off running ragged. And so we had to kind of ease into a relationship. But when we got him for the one-off and he came out, and then years later we got him again, but he was, like you said, top merchandise seller. He was a super current, can't say it was a jump, but remember, we're talking years before Twitter was a thing. And yeah, there were the dirt sheets, but the internet was you would know better than me, but I just felt like it was much smaller. But he was a shock
in its infancy. It wasn't as I mean, back then there were quote unquote internet fans, but now there's just fans.
Yeah. Well said. But I mean, so he was a shock. But the ones that knew, the roof came off, and it was something that, oh man, I just had a thought in my brain. I'm kind of changing subjects. I'd loved, God rest his soul, if Don West would have come on and done kind of a blurb on Jeff Hardy merchandise. Don would do an entire 3-hour episode about Jeff moving merch. And when we do research, I'll maybe pick Craig Jenkins and some other, or Jason James, some other guys' brains about some merch stats and stuff like that. That's a whole nother conversation that we'll get into. But Jeff being a part of the early days of TNA, were absolutely huge. And look, I don't want to get too deep into it, but Conrad, when we knew we had him on board, there was no question. Jeff Hardy was the tip-top babyface for our first ever monthly pay-per-view. That's what I thought of him, or we thought of him, as a talent. He moved the needle for us, and I'm not just saying pay-per-view buys or television ratings. He was a guy that he moved everything. Merch, big part of the early days of TNA.
I'm sure you have a handful of favorite matches, and we've actually talked about, hey, one day when Cody sits down and or maybe Kyra wants to show her kids one day, hey, here's what Dad used to do. And there's a handful of matches you would point to. I know we've had that conversation, but when you and Jeff Hardy get together, is there a time or a match or a moment in a match where you both say, hey, remember that one time? Does that exist for y'all? Do you have a favorite memory in the ring, or a moment where maybe something went really well or something went really bad? Because I know that's your personality, where you'll be like, remember when they just died for this, or that fell apart, or because I know you would say that and just start laughing. I want to know, do you have a moment like that exists with Jeff Hardy?
Yeah. The one that comes to my mind is, Conrad, you said earlier that Jeff is known for those amazing, almost death-defying moments.
Yes.
There's the clip reel at WWE is full of Jeff and Matt Hardy moments. But I mean, when you think through. So this may come as a shock to you, Conrad, but I'm not so sure, in my clip reel of my 37-year career, I don't think you're going to see a lot of tables, ladders, and chairs. Is that fair enough to say that?
I don't remember you jumping off a bunch of ladders or taking spears off of hanging belts or anything like that. No.
Okay, it's fair enough. So our matchup was, I don't want to say oil and water, but we, I had to up my aerial game just enough, but I'm not Jeff Hardy. But I remember, I think it was just a simple text that I said, hey, man, let me know what you're thinking. This is maybe a week or two before our first monthly pay-per-view. And he texts back, and Jeff isn't the biggest texter. I want to be careful that I don't share too much because Jeff's a very private person. But it was basically, Conrad, a couple of word text that he texts back. He said, I want a double size ladder or something, a double J size ladder or something using double and all this. I'm like, huh? He goes, let's get a ladder that really speaks to it. I'm like, okay, he wants a big extra ladder. Conrad, so, I think the average ladder, you got 8 foot, you got 10 foot. Well, down in Orlando, I think they brought us a double-sided 12-foot ladder. And this will be another one and we decide we're both going to take a bump off that. Connie, I'm not afraid of heights, but because I don't mind heights. It's the stopping that gets me. No, I can remember walking out in the afternoon before the match, and his eyes lit up like, hell yes, I love this huge 12-foot ladder. And Conrad, I'm looking at him like, go have fun, pal. How are we going to do this? And in some ways, somehow, we worked out something where I did come off of it. But yeah, that's one of those moments. And we had a couple of really good ones. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you said the word moments, because when I think of Jeff Hardy, I mean, like a lot of people these days talk about matches, and I'm not going to do my Dave Meltzer impression, but I know at different times people really like to do that, and they talk about matches. I think Jeff Hardy's a moments guy.
For sure.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think there's a lesson to that. Like, and I hope that people are hearing what I'm saying in a positive and respectful and complimentary way. But like when people think about like the biggest moments in wrestling career, in wrestling history, like let's just take Hulk Hogan. Slamming Andre the Giant is a moment that will live forever. And another moment is when he dropped the leg at Bash at the Beach and turned heel. That's a big moment. Those aren't really, nobody talks about those matches at all. They talk about those moments. And Hogan had that down pat even when he wrestled The Rock. And that was certainly an era where work rate started to become more of a thing, and people were talking about match quality more and more because fans were getting quote unquote smarter and all that. But him and Rock just looking at each other and then looking at the crowd, that's a moment that inspired a generation of wrestlers. And I think when we think about, all-time great wrestlers, and we talk about the greatest of all time, we rattle off usually the same cast of characters: the Shawn Michaels, the Ric Flairs, the Kenny Omegas. I mean, you could go on and on. But I'm saying a lot of those times when we say, all right, now what is your favorite moment with that guy? They don't feel as big as the moments guys. Does that make sense? Like there's moment guys and there's matches guys. And I'm not saying Jeff wasn't a great wrestler and didn't have great matches. But when you and I and a lot of people think about Jeff, we think about some of those moments, like getting speared in that TLC at WrestleMania hanging, right? And jumping off off the ladder in the aisleway through all those tables. Those are these big moments. And Mick Foley's a guy who had consistently fun and entertaining matches that told great stories, but we think about that as the moments. And I think that's pretty powerful to be able to make that distinction. And he might be the physical embodiment of that. Jeff, can you speak to that?
So I don't, I guess because I love music, but when you hear artists, let me say this: when you hear booking agents, promoters, buddy Kid Rock has that quote, but you can have a hit song and let me see. You can have a song and it can be around for several years, and different people will put it out. And one guy puts it out and it goes to 16, and 3 years later, another guy puts it out and it may go to 8. But then another guy gets it and it's a number 1 for 10 weeks. And then you have, so that's kind of the songwriting avenue. If you go over here to the singer, and you have that singer that, man, he puts out like 8 number 1s in a row, and they're all kind of the same. They all kind of blend together, and there's not any one great classic hit that will be played 20 years later. But man, this artist is hot, and everything he's putting out is going to number 1. And so then you kind of have that. So you kind of have the song and the singer. Then you have those artists that come along that essentially make you feel that, yes, it's a good song, and yes, he or she is a great performer. But when I hear the song or whatever it is, I feel it. Look, we could go into Taylor Swift. You could go into, Toby Keith, Red Solo Cup is a song about drinking beer and all that. And it was around Nashville for years. That song was. He made it into an anthem, but his delivery of that song was what kind of made you feel, if that makes sense. Conrad, I don't know if I'm making sense in this, but I think there's an artist, and then there's lyrics. But if you can make your audience feel, and that's what the moments. Jeff has made a career, and I said it a little while ago. Best promo guy? Probably not. Best wrestler guy? Probably not. But Jeff, in his performances, he makes you feel. And I think that's the single biggest factor of why he's still doing what he does 30 years into this. He makes you feel as an audience member, as a fan. My man Codes still loves Jeff Hardy, and Cody has sat on the beach with Jeff, and we'll get into that on the long form, the vacations that we've taken with the Hardys, and me and Jeff have both been in the trenches together, and all the personal stuff and all that. But as a performer, talking about him on My World Today, I think that is the one single thing that defines him. He makes you feel something as a wrestling fan.
I totally agree with that. And I think, without really knowing Jeff, I think I've only probably had 3 or 4 conversations in my life with Jeff, but I get the vibe that, and again, I don't know him. I get the vibe he doesn't have to wrestle. That cat's made enough money. He could have hung it up a long time ago. I think he loves those moments just as much as we do, or he wouldn't still be doing it. And that's why, my buddy Blake Chance from our mortgage world, and that's his favorite wrestler. Jeff Hardy is the reason he is a wrestling fan. And I think there's a whole generation of folks who've done that. And I can't imagine how many ladies over the years have gone to the matches just to see Jeff Hardy. And he was like that teenage heartthrob. He looked like he was right off the cover of Teen Beat. He was a modern day Rock and Roll Express. And well, as we said, now he's in his mid 40s. So these days, in order to be that matinee idol, he might, like a lot of us, if he's looking to create those moments, might need a little Blue Chew. It's like a hot tag for your wiener. Now, here's the difference. Before Jeff Hardy takes his Blue Chew, he climbs a ladder, and then he just dives off, buddy. And you don't want to be underneath that. Let me just tell you, that's a swanton bomb you won't forget. Hey, y'all, for serious business, check out BlueChew.com. If you've been listening to our show for a while, you know it really works. As good old JR says, honey, just back up into it. Blue Chew's a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. But there won't be anything discreet about your package. And if you're looking to make an impression, let me tell you, you take one of these Blue Chews and you go put on a 5-star performance. Gonna be a lot of chatter. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And we got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code MyWorld at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is MyWorld, and you'll receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Jeff, I got a handful of questions here that we want to ask that are pretty topical considering what happened this past week on TV. And then we'll get out of here. But I have a confession to make, sir.
Oh, boy.
You know, the first time I had the pleasure to come to your multi-million-dollar mansion on the lake, on an island. I mean, Jeff has a moat. That's where he's at in his life. Like, before Cody can go get in the family vehicle, he has to swim across the moat. That's where we are. Anyway, I just wanted to say, you know, we were up there with, I think it was Cassio Kid, my buddy Dave Milliken had tagged along, and I know, of course, Dave Silva was with us. And on our way to lunch, because I said, hey man, where can we go eat a lunch? Let's go eat like a steak for lunch and celebrate our new podcast venture, because we're up there setting up your equipment, your microphone and your board and all that sort of thing. And Cassio's got his big radio background, and of course Silva's got his TV background, and Dave Milliken just wanted to see what belt she had. And,
yeah, well,
here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, there you go. So we go to lunch, and we're eating a wonderful lunch. But on the way there, Cassio, as soon as he got in the car, started saying, so anyways, and he kept going. And I said, you know what? I realize what you're doing. Jeff has like a verbal crutch. He just says, so anyways. And when we shared that with you, for at least the next 2 years, anytime you saw Cassio or you called him on the phone or he called you, you would answer, so anyways. Well, when we had Top Guy Weekend down here a few months ago, of course, I've got the whole cast of characters in here. Marcus was here, and Evan was here, and Dave Green was here, and Silva was here, and Cassio was here, and it's a cast of characters getting ready for Top Guy Weekend here for adfreeshows.com. And Dave Green said, man, I love listening to My World. It's my favorite podcast. And he started laughing, and he kept going, and he could barely get the words out. And he goes, I just love that at the beginning of every episode, Jeff wants to catch us up and get all the plugs out of the way, which we like to do here on the show. But every now and again, he'll just say a word or a phrase and then hit it. And when he said it, I immediately laughed and thought, I never noticed that, but you're exactly right. Oh. And for the rest of the weekend, we all said it. And I made a promise to the guys that day, when Jeff's going to be a surprise. We haven't announced him at Top Guy Weekend, but when I introduce him, I will be sure to get all the plugs out of the way up front in the intro. So I was going to hit like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, before we bring out our next guest, I just want to talk about shoes, baseball. And I was just going to run through all the stuff, just like we do on the show, just like we do with all of our other podcast hosts where we've got our inside whatevers. But there was one phrase that he said that I think, and I'm going to commission, that it needs to be a brand new shirt that we offer here to support My World with Chef JArrett. Lotta Chatter. And I have used Lotta Chatter ever since in my daily discourse. And my friend group and I, we absolutely love it. And we are going to use Lotta Chatter on everything. I just did it in the Blue Chew commercial. And I'm like, I said to myself, I have done this spot now for 2 damn months and said Lotta Chatter just to make our friend group laugh. Except we didn't go have lunch right after, and we couldn't tell you that we were doing it. So you were in on it. So now, forevermore, whenever you call Dave Green or Marcus or me, or there's a group text, would you please just say Lotta Chatter? Because that is one of your things, and we love it so much. See, I got Roll Tide, and I say to myself, self. We all got gimmicks like that. But you didn't know you had a Lotta Chatter gimmick, but it's your gimmick, brother. Like spelling your name and Lotta Chatter. We love it so much. Like, we're not poking fun. It's fantastic. It's your Roll Tide, and you didn't even realize it. And I realized I got to smarten him up on Lotta Chatter. But don't you dare stop saying Lotta Chatter, because we love it and we pop for it.
I'm going to throw something at you.
Okay.
I had no idea that I used to say 100%.
So anyway, yes, 100%. I forgot about that one. Yes.
But y'all started bringing it up. I don't think I use that like I used to. I think
No, you stop. And that's what I'm trying to get you. You don't say so anyway anymore. And you don't say 100%. I didn't even really recognize that you said 100% until Ryder and Hawkins hit us up with it.
Yes.
And I was like, damn, he does say it.
Yes.
And so I've been hesitant. I've been like, man, if I tell him LOTTA CHATTER, he'll stop saying it. And we love it so much.
You know what my OCD brain went to? Now, did Conrad say A space LOT space CHATTER, or is it LOTTA chatter? Is it LOTTA CHATTER or a LOTTA CHATTER? How do I say it?
I'll be honest, I don't even know. But what's fun to me is I appreciate that you understand, like I understand, that yes, we're going to get on here and we're going to have really detailed discussions about wrestling, and we're going to have some healthy debates, and we're going to talk about history and nostalgia, and we're going to talk about the future of the business. But we also know this is a vehicle for me to talk about mortgages, and for us to talk about StarCast, and for us to talk about ad-free shows, and for us to plug all the stuff on your side of the fence as well. And so we get, and I know that you're coming to it from a good place, because you're like, all right, let's get this out of the way at the top of the show, and then we'll get into it. And so we do that with JR. We do that with Bruce. We do that with Tony Schiavone.
I was about to say,
yes. Everybody in the industry does it. Just, hey, here's what's going on. Like JR updates us. And I'm not saying this funny. I'm saying JR, is battling that cancer in his leg. Yep. So he gives us an update on that, and then tells us, hey, I'm going to be home in Oklahoma. I'm going to get to see my family this weekend. And so it's just like, hey, what's going on in your world sort of thing. Everybody does it. We love that you do it. But you sometimes are like, all right, I know I got to get through that, and then we're going to so let's just rush through it. And I think you're trying to think in terms of the audience. We got to get through there faster. But as you know, sometimes we'll talk 3 hours. It's whatever. We're not up against it. But you're being so mindful of the audience that sometimes it'll be, oh, Connie, man, lots to talk about today. WrestleQuest coming out, lots of buzz on the West Coast, a lot of chatter. Got shoes, baseball, got to get the people of Central Illinois together. Got some things going on with the park. Now, the fans are having a lot of fun. Had a big promotion the other night, a lot of chatter. And so this Sunday, we've got our first house show, Corbin, Kentucky. I don't know if you've seen what people are saying online. A lot of chatter. And you hit that lot of chatter, and we haven't joked. It should be a drinking game. Now, of course, you don't drink, so you couldn't participate in it. But boy, about halfway through the show, I'd be, I love LOTTA CHATTER. And you know what? I'm going to will it into existence. Pick up your LOTTA CHATTER shirt, available now at boxofgimmicks.com. Please don't stop saying LOTTA CHATTER. We love it so much, Jeff.
You know what? Because you talk about being mindful of the audience. I do never, ever, and maybe you need to help me with this, partner, because sometimes I think to myself, they took my world today to listen to Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Deathmatch talk, or
that's right. That's right.
But I also know that my world is my world, and talking the feedback that I get, like from the WrestleQuest folks, I've done a lot of that the last 60 days.
Yeah.
I mean, they will say, hey man, on your podcast, every kind of thing that I talk about in Central Illinois, I guarantee you, if we could do a download, a map, there's a lot of my world listeners. I mean, a whole lot of my world listeners in that area. Same with every kind of thing that you're talking, I hit. But I know that's kind of segmented, that a guy in Australia or in California, they don't give two shits about.
Oh man. But you and I do that about football.
It's the conversation.
Yes.
And I lose sight of that. I do.
No, dude, we got as much time as we want. We'll just talk about it. But you and I, at the end of last week's show, we just started randomly talking about college football. Nobody in Wembley this weekend cares about that, but they care about you. And the show is about us talking. So we do want to hear what you've got to say, but it's like, you're like, all right, they didn't really tune in for this. Let's just get through it. Yeah. And sometimes it would, I think the one that got Dave tickled so much is you just said two words and then LOTTA CHATTER and then moved on. And but Dave doing the impression in our office that day, we were belly laughing because none of us had ever even thought about it. And we're like, damn, he does say LOTTA CHATTER. And LOTTA CHATTER is a shirt available now. And don't you retire it, Jeff. We like LOTTA CHATTER. We got to keep it going.
Okay. I got to really think.
I mean, listen, I know that there's that sensitive person inside of all of us, but you shelve that because you took 100% from us. You took so anyways from us. We got to keep LOTTA CHATTER. I only shared that. They're going to be upset with me if you stop saying LOTTA CHATTER.
That's really in my DNA.
Here's the thing too, Jeff. Since Top Guy Weekend, I haven't done a commercial with you where I didn't say LOTTA CHATTER and you didn't notice. Because it's just a part of our show. It would be like if I said Roll Tide, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's what he says.
Yep.
But we love LOTTA CHATTER. Please don't take it from us. We need it. We need LOTTA CHATTER.
You know what? That is kind of, I'm going to talk to Dave Green because, hey, do you want a lot of chatter about your brand? Well,
that's it.
You come right on over here to my world, and we're going to sell you a sponsorship package because there's one thing Double J and Conrad do. They create a lot of chatter. Do you want chatter about your brand? Well, guess what? You've come to the right place because
buddy, I'm on GoDaddy.com right now. I'm about to buy LOTTACHATTER.com. I love it so much.
If you want a lot of chatter about your brand, come on, Connie.
LOTTA CHATTER marketing, LOTTA CHATTER agency. We'll turn a lot of chatter into a lot of cheddar. I mean, we could keep going here. I'm just saying. All right. So listen, that was Inside Baseball, but I do want to ask you a couple more questions about this past week. And by the way, you better not stop using LOTTA CHATTER. It's money. We're going to make money with that. Listen, lots of smart ass comments. We're going to run through a few.
I love it.
Man, Smart Wets. Boy, I don't know what your deal is here. I don't know how to say your name. I'm sorry. But he wrote in, was a chainsaw on a pole match ever considered?
Well, I can't really say there was a lot of chatter about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
But there has been quite the conversation. No, never a chainsaw on a pole match. Never. Oh, Conrad. I don't know if this is the time, but do you know that last Wednesday wasn't the first encounter that I've had with Leatherface? You know that I've been in wrestling arena
in Memphis, right? Back in the day.
I was going to say, I had that conversation with some different folks as we were going through preparations and lighting and prep and all that. And some of the folks who hadn't been around and don't really know Memphis wrestling, they looked at me and I said, oh yeah, me and Leatherface, we go way, way back. Can I tell you a Lawler story?
Please do.
So as the longtime My World listeners knows, we would run Saturday morning TV, which would promote Monday night in Memphis. And then that same 90-minute show would be cut into a 60-minute show and aired the following Saturday in Nashville, Louisville, Kentucky, Evansville, Indiana, and a bunch of other cities across the Southeast.
Hey, I found it, by the way.
What's that?
Jeff Jarrett and Robert Fuller wrestled the Goon #1 in Leatherface in Humboldt, Tennessee, August 29th, 1991.
But that ain't the time, but go ahead.
And then at Mid-South Coliseum, the Big Black Dog teamed up with Moondog Spot and Richard Lee to take on you, Jerry Lawler, and Leatherface, March 30th, 1992.
I'm just going to say this. There's about a 99.999% chance if Leatherface was on the card, Jerry Lawler was booking. Lawler loves him some Leatherface. So there's been multiple characters underneath the Leatherface outfit. But I'll never forget this this set of circumstances that we had going on the bicycle, going on the loop. We had a Tuesday Leatherface was in a match, and Wednesday Leatherface was in a match. And we had some old boy that was going to play the role of Leatherface. And Conrad, can you imagine that guy getting the call? Hey, we need you to be in Louisville. If you can bring, we'll have the mask for you, but if you can bring, a suit and, whatever the costume, and I can imagine Lawler, whoever he's calling and download this information. And, oh yeah, can you bring a chainsaw with you? Oh, hell yeah, I'll bring my chainsaw. All right. Needs to be running. Yep. All right, great. So this Tuesday night, we get to the arena, and here comes the good old boy that's going to be playing the role of Leatherface. And Conrad, he has a chainsaw, and the chain is not taken off of it. So it's a live
chainsaw.
No.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Lawler, in his very articulate way, cussed him up one side of Louisville Gardens dressing room, downside. You dumb son of a bitch. Why in the world? We told you, you can't walk out in the people with a running chainsaw with a live chain on it. You just can't do that. So, okay. Well, so Lawler goes, all right, then we kind of have to figure this out. When it's time for you to do the run in, I don't even know if he was in the match or whatever it was, but he had to go to the ring with just a chainsaw in his hand. But Lawler's like, don't turn it on. That's crazy insurance. The building could get people. It's too damn dangerous. If you were to trip, you could cut somebody's whatever. So the chainsaw wasn't running. So come time, Leatherface makes his entrance, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was just like zero reaction. You can imagine how Lawler felt about in the ring. It was not just a dud. I mean, a terrible dud. Horrible. So next night in Evansville, we come, and Lawler's like, did you get that chain off? And the guy's like, no, man, that's my working chainsaw. I got to be real careful with it. I thought we just do the same thing. Lawler goes into us cussing again. Well, I told you how the hell we were paying you to do this and go through all this kind of discussion. So Lawler, having his priorities straight, has a conversation with him, say, all right, if we're doing this, light that son of a bitch up. But if you get near any of the people. So Conrad, he went to the ring with a live chainsaw. But I'm saying all this to say the reaction when he came through the curtain, he started it backstage. So you heard the sound of a live chainsaw going wide open before you actually saw him. And when he came through into the Evansville arena, the people, it's a whole different vibe. There's something about a sound effect, but the people scattered, and he did his whole deal. And yes, in Evansville, Indiana, there was a Leatherface with a real live chainsaw walking around the ring, and it clicked that night. But that's my Leatherface live chainsaw story. But I've never heard or even thought about having a chainsaw on a pole match.
Hey guys, need to call a quick timeout here. Wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my listeners over at OU didn't know for a while now about all the cool things happening over at adsfreeshows.com.
Conrad sits down with a pioneer of wrestling television production, director Dan Bynum, who discusses his journey through WCW, ROH, MLW, and where it all began for him, world class.
What really was the thing that catapulted it was, one, working with Ric Flair. He came to the territory and wrestled with the Von Erich boys and gave us so much gravitas. And two, the greatest feud in the history of wrestling, the Freebird Von Erich feud. Mm-hmm. So we were there at the hottest time with the hottest show, and we took over the world.
The Yeti, Ron Reese, sits down with Ad-Free Shows members to talk about his infamous night at Halloween Havoc and how it was received by the boys in the back.
Oh, no, I remember, like, Arn Anderson told me that was the drizzling shits, and Dusty Rhodes was like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I'm just like, hey, thanks.
That's just a small taste of what we got waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why Ads-Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adsfreeshows.com.
Well, in my head, I mean, I was watching the show this morning, and I thought, okay, they're playing the sound effect, and I know it sounds silly, a chainsaw on a pole, but you could start the sound effect. You could simulate that just like they did with the Mountie back in the day, even if you pulled it off the pole. I just did a quick Google search. Do you think the guy who was playing Leatherface for y'all in Tennessee was Mike Samples?
He was one of them for sure. Okay. I love Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. Mike. Okay. Yeah. Mike was Leatherface quite a bit, but not on this occasion. No. On this, Mike knew better. That Mike would have showed up without a chainless chainsaw.
Under New Management on Twitter wants to know, were you aware when you were designing the match of the polarized response you would get? And do you consider this to be AEW's RoboCop moment? Now, as a reminder, WCW had RoboCop. They were trying to promote the movie RoboCop, and they had RoboCop come out and save Sting at the end of a pay-per-view. And of course, that was a part of Turner Home Entertainment, and they're serving a couple of masters. We also know later in WCW, Chucky would be involved with a storyline with Rick Steiner. But this sort of thing has happened a lot over the years. I mean, hell, Mr. T was in the main event of the first WrestleMania, and it's like people just forget that that was a thing. Did you consider this a RoboCop type moment? And did you know as you're laying it out, boy, we're going to have a polarizing response from this?
I knew from the second, and I'm in business development, and I've heard about this integration, but you know, the powers that be with the network and the video game, they hadn't really come to decision like how he was going to go. And then me actually being in the match was a bit of surprise. But I knew from the minute I told that I was in it, A, I was super fired up, but B, without question, it's super polarizing, specifically to an AEW audience, specifically in 2023. And I also think that context is king, as EB says. The show on Wednesday night, those factors go into it as well. So yes, absolutely knew it was polarizing, because to deliver, how are you, if you really sit back and think through, let me just say that the folks that have made the hyper critical match, Conrad, help me with an answer on this. Do you think the people that are the most critical, would their vote be to do it in a different manner or just not to have it at all? Because if you're going to have an integration, there's elements. If you're promoting a video game, an iconic character like Leatherface, we don't want him wrestling. They didn't want him. Let me just say, they didn't want him wrestling. There were certain parameters that he had to go by. But yeah, I knew it'd be polarizing in so many ways, without question.
I'll be honest. I think we can do anything in the name of charity. If we say right out front, hey guys, coming up next, here's some silly shit, but it's all going to charity. Let's have fun. Yeah. But I think if you're trying to sit down, like imagine if you were a basketball purist. And by the way, have you been watching Winning Time on HBO this season?
Oh, I've got to watch it. The Laker deal?
It's out. 2 episodes are out, or as folks are listening to this, 3 episodes are out. It is so damn good. Anyway, if you're a hardcore basketball person, then you probably thumb your nose at the Harlem Globetrotters. But a lot of people love it, and a lot of people enjoy it. And there is a way to just have fun with basketball and it not be serious basketball. And I think that could be true here as well. I mean, think about how, a generation ago, what a big deal it was, the slam dunk contest on NBA All-Star Weekend. That's not a real game. That's just an exhibition, and it's silly and it's lighthearted, and it's not in the spirit of the game. It's just they used to have a skill set for quarterbacks and things like that, a skill challenge thing. I enjoyed all that stuff. It's okay to have fun with this stuff. It doesn't have to all be hard-nosed storytelling.
So I think you said something to the fact, is this going to be WCW RoboCop moment? And I see the analogy.
Yeah.
WCW, AEW. I was trying to think when I was finishing that answer with that. So I remember specifically the podcast we did after WrestleMania when Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville had that match. I said it when I watched it, and then for weeks after it. People that really know this industry get it. Those that maybe knocked it. Sami Zayn is super talented to be able to do what he did. He is a unquestionably one of the most talented guys, I believe, on their roster from top to bottom. You think about the role that he has played in the bloodline. I preferably like to think that when Sami was the most involved, I think we'll go down in history and look back and say, there's your peak of the bloodline. Those episodes when Sami was in and out and torn between and just all that kind of dynamic. And so when I look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Deathmatch being a RoboCop, I just think we're in a different generation. It's not for everybody, but it absolutely served its purpose. And now it's time for the Last Outlaw to go down another avenue, and Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy and the rock stars, they go down another avenue and maybe we meet again or whatever it may be. But I think the world we live in that you topped on the top of the show I think I'd be willing to bet there's a lot of people that didn't watch the match that commented on Twitter about it. That's
absolutely.
That's our reality in 2023.
Two more, then we'll blow it off here. Anthony TX on Twitter wants to know, what was Tony Khan's reaction after the match backstage?
Big smile, but look, you kind of, this is super inside baseball, like knowing what you just said, the charity aspect, also knowing the nuts and bolts of the value of just this integration. I mean, it's a lot more that's being reported, but also the avenue that this can take us, that, okay, this is how Tony's organization did this integration. So the next integration may or may not be as deep, but basically new frontier, new business development, new opportunities. I could go on and on and on. So I believe Tony, well, he said this, he's loved it, super pleased, happy, but it goes a lot more than, was Tony's cup of tea, fake blood being poured on and then real blood coming out of my head and a guitar shot and or kendo stick or the backstage, all that. I'm not saying that's his cup of tea. I'm not saying that. From a business perspective, and that's what all this is. Super excited and was very appreciative of it.
All right. You knew I was probably going to ask because it is going to be discussed, I'm sure, at length.
Oh boy.
Our old pal Derek Sabato, third man here on the show, besides Marcus. I guess that's the fourth man. I don't know.
Yeah.
He says, what do you think Jim Cornette's reaction is going to be to this?
Oh boy. I don't do good impersonations.
Goddamn.
But as far as generating content for his audience, we just hand delivered him a 7-course meal that can generate views and content, and his entire business model. He was grinning from ear to ear from the time it was announced until the time the match was over. He loved every minute of it. I'm not saying emotionally loved it. I'm saying from his business perspective.
Oh yeah.
We knocked it so far out of the park for him because he's got content for days. He can rip Jeff Hardy. He can rip Jeff Jarrett. He can rip the props. He can rip the chainsaw Leatherface. He can compare it to the Leatherface of the 80s and 90s and the Japan version and the Memphis version. It's content for days for him that's right up his alley. So I'm going to say, Corny absolutely loved it for all the right reasons.
That's going to do it for us today, folks.
Conrad, what do you think Corny thought?
Well, listen, I'll tell you this. If it was Smoky Mountain, he would have loved the opportunity to have integration in there. I mean, I know that people, listen, Silly has always been a part of wrestling. I mean, he used to promote diaper matches and he used to promote, I mean, there was a Ninja Turtle. I mean, he grew up with Memphis stuff, and there was once a Christmas creature. I mean, there's a guy dressed up like a Christmas tree. That's what we had for Kane. So there's been lots of silly stuff that he has been around and seen and been a part of. And I mean, the reality is it is not just wrestling. It is the wrestling business. And before we're quick to judge something, we should say to ourselves, how did this affect business? And as Jeff alluded to earlier, it's a lot more that's been reported. So don't believe everything that you see, but do believe the hype. StarCast is coming up. I can't believe this is real. It's closing in September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Everybody who's anybody is going to be in Chicago, and you should be too. 2 stages, nonstop action, man. The music of AEW. Oh, and by the way, Dale Oliver, who did all the TNA themes, he's going to be there. Tony Khan's going to be on stage. We've got Kawada with his first appearance in America in over 35 years. So much more. The full schedule is posted now over at STARRCAST.com. One bracelet gets you access to all of those. You can also meet Sting and so many of your AEW favorites, including the Last Outlaw Double J, who not only has his band of Merry Misfits there doing meet and greets and autographs on Saturday, but they'll be on stage as well. Make plans to join us, STARRCAST.com. And of course, if you can't make it over, just be sure to check us out on Premiere. You can keep up with all the fun over there at StarCastOnPremiere.com. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. You get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. Not only do you get bonus content from all the shows on our network every month that's exclusive to AFS, you also get bonus content like the book with David Crockett, like the Insiders, where I talk to folks like Dan Bynum about all of his production work at World Class. We've got Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a brand new series, Tuesdays with the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan. He is exclusive now with that program over at adfreeshows.com. If your business targets men 25-54, man, there's no better place to advertise than right here with us. You hear some of the same ads week after week for years. Why is that? Well, because it really works. Find out how affordable it is at advertisewithjarrett.com. Love to have your interaction. We are going to talk about Jeff Hardy in long form, I promise. But I felt like, man, we had enough just to talk about with that match this past week. So if you've got more questions about Jeff, drop them now at MyWorldPod on Twitter. Jeff, I can't believe this is real, but we got to figure out when we're going to tape, man, because the next time people hear this, we'll just be a couple of days removed from you and the whole cast and crew and everybody doing their thing over at All In. But it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait to break down that show and talk about StarCast and so much more. You never know what's coming, but you know that you can keep it all in your favorites if you go to myworldonyoutube.com. That's the easiest and best way to support the show is to check us out on YouTube, myworldonyoutube.com. And don't forget to check out the brand new shirt over at boxofgimmicks.com. LOTTA CHATTER. And we'll see you next week right here on My World.
Peace. Hey, I'm Double J Jeff Jarrett, and I know a thing or two about walking out on a bad deal, like paying someone else's mortgage. Don't let your landlord get over on you. Walk out on that bad deal and stop throwing your money away on rent today with SaveWithConrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You may not even need a down payment. Your new house payment could be less than what you're paying now. So if you're still renting, what are you doing? Conrad and his team can help you reverse your landlord's figure 4 leg lock, and you can move up the card to home ownership. Visit SaveWithConrad.com today. That's right, SaveWithConrad.com today.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!